Her sister died last month. Now she's sleeping with the husband she left behind to comfort him. Some losses don't just bury the dead, they bury what's left of the living. Emily died suddenly on a cold February morning, leaving behind an infant daughter, a disoriented husband, and a sister with an old secret. A week after the funeral, Lauren walked through her sister's front door with a suitcase, an offer of help, and a heavy ache she couldn't name. She said she came to help, and she did. But the truth is, something was already living in that house, something between her, Mark, and the silence that now filled every room, that had begun long before Emily died. Sometimes in trying to comfort someone, we cross lines we swore we'd never touch. And when grief blurs with desire, mourning becomes a minefield. If stories that explore the deepest, most uncomfortable corners of the human soul speak to you, subscribe to the channel. This is just the beginning. The house felt bigger without Emily. Mark opened the door and saw Lauren standing on the porch with a small suitcase in one hand and a thermal bag in the other. The March wind blew dried leaves across the sidewalk, making the railing hum slightly. She wore the same navy blue coat from the funeral, but the zipper was half open like she'd rushed out or fled. "Hey," she said, her voice too steady for someone who hadn't slept in days. "Hey," he replied, holding the doorknob a moment too long before stepping aside. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was familiar, like it had always been there, between avoided glances at family dinners and texts replied to too late. Lauren stepped inside carefully as if her shoes might scratch the floor. The wood creaked beneath her, and the warmth of the house clashed with the bitter air outside. This had been Emily's home. Now it was just a suspended space. The walls still held framed photos, Emily smiling, holding the baby lying on Mark's lap. Everything looked too recent, too sacred. "She just went down," Mark said, as if that explained the dim hallway. Lauren nodded. She set her bag down in the corner of the living room and slowly removed her coat. Sweat clung to her back despite the chill. She followed Mark to the baby's room. The door was ajar. A soft lamp glowed beside the crib, outlining Emma's tiny shape beneath a pink blanket, her breathing slow and moist. Lauren approached quietly. The scent of the room, warm milk, baby powder, freshly washed clothes, pierced her chest like a memory too old to fight. It smelled like their childhood, like lullabies and feverish nights. She looked at the baby with a gaze that wasn't just affectionate, it was recognition. Something inside her whispered, "She's a part of me too." "I don't know what she understands yet," Mark murmured behind her. "But when she doesn't see anyone, she cries different." Lauren said nothing. She touched the crib gently, just with her fingertips. "Are you sure you want to stay?" he asked later while she unpacked in the old guest room. Emily used to work there doing graphic design before Emma was born. There was a ceiling fan, a bookshelf, and a nursing chair by the wall. Lauren sat in it without thinking, breathed in the faint scent of the fabric. "You need help," she said. "And so do I." Mark didn't push. He stood at the doorway a moment, glancing at the half-open suitcase, the tangled phone charger, the herbal remedies in the thermal bag. Then he left without closing the door. At 3:12 a.m., Lauren woke to crying. She got up instinctively, barefoot in the hallway, and picked Emma up with more ease than she expected. The baby's mouth searched hungrily, her eyes still shut tight. Without thinking, Lauren pulled up her shirt and held the baby to her chest. There was no milk. But there was warmth. Something inside her stirred, like a cramp in a place she didn't know existed. Her breasts ached faintly. Back in the hallway mirror, Emma asleep on her shoulder, Lauren caught her own reflection, and for a moment saw two faces, hers and Emily's, overlapping, almost one. She closed her eyes, her breath trembled. The guilt didn't have a name yet, but it had already moved in. The days began to stretch, quiet and slow. Mornings came with the scent of reheated coffee and the rustle of Emma stirring in her crib. Lauren had started waking before Mark. She'd learned the rhythm of the baby's sleep, her small moans before a full cry, the temperature she preferred in her bottle. Though often, Emma rejected the bottle and turned her face toward Lauren's chest. Lauren had stopped flinching. The first time it happened, she felt a sting of shame. Now she let the baby nuzzle, her tiny mouth exploring instinctively. One afternoon, Lauren noticed her bra was damp. She locked the bathroom door, pulled up her shirt, and stared. Her nipples were swollen, tender, A small, pale drop appeared. She sat down on the closed toilet seat and pressed her hands to her eyes. Her body, confused by proximity and grief, had begun to believe it was a mother. She didn't tell Mark. The house remained mostly silent. Meals were functional. Conversations brief. Mark went back to working remotely, typing emails with the baby monitor by his side. Sometimes Lauren watched him from the kitchen doorway, sleeves rolled up, fingers at his temples, still wearing his wedding ring. In the evenings, they'd sit in the living room, each with a glass of wine, Emma asleep nearby in her bassinet. The TV murmured news they didn't follow. On the third evening, a scene in a movie showed a woman breastfeeding. Mark looked away too quickly. Lauren didn't comment. She felt a pressure rising in her chest that had nothing to do with milk. One night, she walked into the kitchen and saw Mark holding one of the small glass jars she used to store breast milk. He took a sip, absent-mindedly, and paused mid-swallow. "This tastes weird," he said. She froze. "What is that?" "I thought it was the oat milk you brought." He looked at the jar. His face changed. Oh, there was a long silence. She couldn't speak. He began, eyes searching hers. She shook her head slowly but said nothing. He didn't ask again. He just placed the jar back in the fridge, shut the door, and left the room. That night, Lauren couldn't sleep. Her breasts were heavier. Emma woke around 4, crying sharply. Lauren took her to the nursing chair. In the dark, as the baby latched, she felt a wet warmth spread. And then relief. Mark passed by the doorway, pausing in the shadows. He didn't enter. But he watched, just for a second. Lauren kept her eyes on the baby, pretending not to see. The silence in the house had changed. It was no longer the silence of grief. It was the silence of something beginning. Something neither of them could name. It started with a drawer that stuck. Lauren was looking for baby blankets in the hallway cabinet when she tugged one handle too hard. A pile of old envelopes and loose photographs tumbled out. She crouched to gather them and paused. Her hands froze on a picture half tucked into a manila folder. It was from years ago, a barbecue in the backyard. Emily, glowing, pregnant. Mark standing behind her, his hands lightly resting on her shoulders. And Lauren, off to the side, laughing at something out of frame, wearing a summer dress she no longer owned. She sat on the hallway floor with the pile in her lap. One by one, she flipped through the snapshots. Emily in college, Mark and Emily at a New Year's party, Lauren and Emily as kids sharing a bunk bed, a Polaroid of all 3 of them at a beach trip. Then one photo she didn't remember being taken. Emily asleep on a couch, Mark reading, and Lauren sitting on the floor between them, leaning against Mark's leg, her head tilted toward him. Her stomach tightened. Had they always been that close? Had Emily noticed? She flipped the picture over. No date, no notes, just a smudge of pen that had faded to nothing. She kept that photo separate, slid it into her back pocket. That night, after Emma was asleep, Lauren returned to the drawer. She found a small box inside labeled letters. Most were from Emily's college years, scribbled lines about professors, stress, missing home. Then one envelope addressed to her. It hadn't been mailed. The paper had yellowed, the handwriting unmistakably Emily's. Lauren hesitated, then opened it. The letter was brief. "Sometimes I wonder if you see him the way I see you looking. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just my mind trying to ruin the only good thing I have. But if I disappear one day, not die, just vanish, promise me you won't try to replace me. Please, just be her aunt, not her mother, not his wife, just Lauren. That's enough." The paper trembled in her hands. Her breath caught. She folded the letter again and didn't tell anyone. Outside, the baby stirred in her sleep, and down the hall she heard water running. Mark in the shower, the door slightly ajar, steam rising, light flickering against the tiles. She should have walked away. Instead, she stood in the hallway watching. Not entering, just watching. Like a photo developing in reverse, revealing something that had always been there, but no one had dared to name. It started with a shared bottle of red. The kind Emily used to open only on special occasions. Mark found it in the back of the pantry, unopened, dust on the cork. He didn't say anything when he brought it to the living room, just poured 2 glasses. Lauren looked at the label. Her chest tightened. "You sure?" she asked. Mark nodded. "It was already here, might as well." The baby had gone to sleep early. A rare gift. The bassinet was in the corner of the room, and the hum of the white noise machine muffled the outside world. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, the wine between them. For a while they didn't speak. just sipped, listened to the soft ticking of the clock, the occasional creak of the house settling. Then Mark said, almost too quietly, "You look like her sometimes, when you laugh." Lauren didn't laugh. She set her glass down. "Do you ever talk to her?" she asked. He hesitated. "In my head, mostly when I'm half asleep." "I tell her she left a mess." Lauren nodded slowly. Her voice came out like paper. "She wrote me a letter." Mark turned to her. "What did it say?" "That she knew or suspected about something. About us." The room thickened. Mark didn't ask what she meant by us. Lauren looked down at her hands. Her fingers were shaking. She picked up the glass again. "I keep trying to remember if I ever crossed a line," she said, "before." Mark leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You didn't. I did." That admission sat between them like fog. Neither moved. Lauren said, "There was a night at your wedding. You looked at me just once, like—" Mark cut her off. "I remember." Their eyes met. The baby stirred. Neither moved. Lauren stood, picked up the empty glasses, walked to the kitchen. Mark followed. The light over the sink was dim. She rinsed the glasses in silence. He leaned against the counter behind her. He didn't touch her, but she felt his presence like heat. "I miss her." "Me too," she whispered. Then, without turning around, Lauren said, "You shouldn't look at me like that." Mark didn't answer, but he didn't look away either. In the reflection of the microwave door, their figures hovered, separate, almost touching. The red wine stain in her glass dripped into the sink. Something had cracked, not broken, but cracked wide enough for the air to change, and once it changed, nothing would taste quite the same again. In the mornings, Lauren avoided mirrors. Her face looked too much like Emily's now. The same bone structure, same tired eyes. It wasn't just resemblance, it was invasion. Her sister was slipping into her. She started wearing Emily's old robe. At first by accident, then because it was warm, then because Mark noticed and didn't say anything. The baby called for her in soft, confused sounds, sometimes ma, sometimes just a whimper. Lauren tried to correct it gently. "I'm Auntie," she'd whisper, but the words felt foreign, even to her. Mark had stopped sleeping in the master bedroom, said it was too much, too full of her scent, her ghost, her absence. He moved to the couch, then to the guest room down the hall. Lauren still slept in the original guest room, but sometimes at night she heard his door open, steps in the kitchen, a glass, water running. She would lie there, eyes wide, heartbeat too fast, wondering if he'd stop at her door. He never did. One night, Lauren sat on the floor of Emily's closet. The smell was fainter now. She pressed her face into a cardigan, inhaled, then cried. Not for Emily, not entirely, but for herself, for what was becoming of her. She wasn't replacing. She was dissolving. She tried to pump less, to nurse less. But Emma resisted the bottle now. She wanted Lauren. Only Lauren. One afternoon, Mark found her dozing in the nursing chair, the baby latched and sleeping. He didn't say anything, just watched, then walked away. That night, Lauren found a note on the counter. "Can you sleep in the nursery tonight? Emma calms faster when you're near. I think it helps." She read it twice, then a third time. That night, she moved the nursing chair closer to the crib. Emma slept peacefully. Lauren didn't sleep at all. The house was quiet again. But this time it was a different kind of quiet. The kind that comes after a question is asked and no one answers. The kind that waits. It wasn't planned. Lauren was asleep in the nursery, or trying to be, when Emma began to stir again. It was past 2 in the morning. Mark's footsteps echoed faintly in the hallway, then stopped at the door. "I heard her," he whispered. Lauren was already picking Emma up, her hands practiced, natural. She didn't turn around. Mark didn't leave. She sat in the nursing chair, the baby at her breast, half asleep already. The dim light caught Lauren's profile, the slope of her neck, the edge of her jawline, so much like Emily's. Mark leaned against the doorframe. "She's calm with you," he said. Lauren nodded. "She knows I'm not her, but I think she forgets sometimes." A long pause. Then Mark stepped inside. He crouched beside the chair, watching Emma's tiny fingers open and close. His face was unreadable, the kind of quiet grief that had dried into something else. "I don't know who I am in this house anymore," he said. Lauren looked down. "Me neither." She could feel his breath. The space between them evaporated. When she looked up, their faces were inches apart. She kissed him, or he kissed her. It was soft, slow, not desperate, just inevitable. Emma stirred slightly and Lauren adjusted her. They broke the kiss, guilt, out of breath. Mark stood first. He ran a hand through his hair. I should. Lauren nodded. He left. She stayed in the chair until Emma was fully asleep, then laid her down, stood in the dark nursery, and touched her lips like she'd touched fire. In the kitchen the next morning, nothing was said. Mark poured coffee. Lauren held Emma. Their fingers touched briefly over the handle of the bottle warmer. No eye contact, just heat. The silence had become the shape of something living, something that had finally, quietly arrived. Her name was Diane. Early 60s, silver hair always tied back, garden gloves even when she wasn't gardening. She lived next door and had been Emily's friend in that casual, suburbia way. Holiday cookies, dog-sitting, short conversations over fences. Lauren noticed her more now, the way she lingered on the porch, the way she seemed to pause when walking past their house. One afternoon, Diane knocked, brought over zucchini bread and a too-sweet smile. I was just thinking about Emily, she said, voice soft, and I thought maybe you'd like some company. Lauren let her in. They sat in the kitchen, Emma asleep in a wrap across Lauren's chest. Diane talked about plants, the weather, her arthritis. Then, mid-sentence, she stopped, tilted her head. She's gotten so big, Diane said, looking at Emma. And you've taken to her so naturally. It's like she was always yours. Lauren's throat tightened. She forced a smile. She's all I think about lately, Lauren replied. It keeps me from... She didn't finish. Diane nodded slowly as if agreeing with something unspoken. Then, more quietly, grief does strange things, blurs lines. I remember when my sister passed, her husband would come by all the time, for help, for dinners, for silence. Lauren said nothing. Diane's eyes didn't blink. I used to catch him looking at me like I was someone else, and sometimes I let him. Lauren's chest tightened. The baby stirred. Don't let this house become a mirror, Diane said. It doesn't reflect what's real, just what's left. She stood, picked up her bag, didn't wait for a response. That night, Lauren stood by the window, watching Diane's porch light flicker off. Mark came into the room, shirt damp from the baby's bath. Everything okay? He asked. Lauren nodded, just tired. She didn't tell him about Diane, but she slept restlessly, dreaming of mirrors, ones that showed not her face but Emily's, ones that cracked when touched. Lauren found it by accident. She was reorganizing Emma's room, folding away clothes that no longer fit, when she noticed a slim hardcover notebook wedged behind a stack of baby books. The cover was pale blue, frayed at the edges. Familiar. Emily's handwriting on the first page hit her like a whisper. Emma, if you're reading this, it means I didn't get to tell you everything. Lauren sat on the edge of the crib and turned the pages slowly. Most entries were written during pregnancy, descriptions of kicks, cravings, fears. But deeper in, the tone shifted. Doubt bled through the lines. I feel Lauren watching sometimes. I know it's not fair. She tries, she helps, but there's something in the way Mark listens when she speaks. Something softer. I tell myself it's just me, but some days I see it in his posture, in her silences. Lauren swallowed hard. I love them both, but I wonder if they'd be okay without me. That thought scares me more than dying. She closed the diary. Her hands were trembling. That night she didn't speak to Mark. Couldn't. Not even when he gently brushed her arm as he passed her in the hallway. She stayed awake until Emma cried, sat in the nursing chair with the diary in her lap. Mark appeared in the doorway. He looked at her, at the book. I didn't know she wrote. Lauren nodded. She knew. He stepped closer, slowly, sat on the floor by her feet. I think I started mourning her before she was gone, he said. When she got quiet, when she stopped looking me in the eye. Lauren didn't respond. She stared at a crack in the wall, one she hadn't noticed before. You don't have to be her, Mark whispered. But sometimes, Lauren said, voice breaking, I think I already am. The diary remained open on her lap, the page unreadable through the tears that blurred it. Lauren didn't eat breakfast the next morning. She packed Emma's diaper bag slowly, deliberately. The silence in the kitchen felt full of breath she couldn't release. Mark noticed. Are you going somewhere? She nodded. Just out for a walk. But the stroller didn't turn toward the park. It headed for the edge of town, toward a motel near the old bus station. Lauren didn't know how long she'd stay, just that she had to leave before it was too late. In the room, Emma slept on the bed, and Lauren sat with her back against the wall, the baby monitor from the nursery still clutched in her hand like an anchor. She hadn't meant to take it, but it felt like the house was still listening. Mark texted, Are you okay?" She didn't answer. "Where are you?" Still no answer. Then finally, "You don't have to disappear." Lauren stared at the screen. Her hands were shaking again. She typed, deleted, typed again. Finally, "I'm not disappearing. I'm choosing." Back at the house, Mark sat alone at the kitchen table, the empty high chair beside him. He didn't move for a long time. That night, Lauren stayed in the motel. Emma cried once. She held her close, fed her, and cried too. She didn't feel like a mother. Not exactly. Not yet, but she felt something truer than guilt. The need to be whole. In the morning, she wrote a note on hotel stationery. "Mark, I loved her too, but I can't be her, and I can't lose myself trying. I'll be Emma's aunt, if you'll let me. But only that." She slipped it into an envelope and mailed it before her courage broke. It would be days before he replied. But when he did, it was just one line. "Yes, that's enough." 6 months later, Lauren now lived in a smaller town 2 hours north. She rented a modest apartment above a bookstore and worked part-time helping catalog used books. Quiet, predictable, clean. Emma was still in her life, weekends mostly, sometimes longer. Mark had accepted the new rhythm without protest. Perhaps he needed the distance too. The house where Emily had lived was sold. Mark moved into a condo closer to work. He and Lauren didn't talk about what happened, not directly, but they shared a language now, one that relied on restraint and careful pauses. On Emma's third visit, Lauren received a letter. Mark's handwriting. Inside, a drawing Emma had made, 2 figures holding hands, a child between them, smiling. No names. Just that image. Lauren pinned it to her fridge. Some nights she would stand in the kitchen staring at it, wine glass in hand, and wonder if love always demanded either silence or sacrifice. She never asked Mark if he felt the same. She didn't need to. Outside, the world moved on. Seasons shifted, leaves turned and fell, snow gathered in corners and melted away. Inside, Lauren breathed. Emma laughed. And no one called her mother. But sometimes when the light hit the window just right, she could almost believe that what they had wasn't broken, just rearranged. If this story moved you, consider subscribing. There are more truths to uncover and more silences to listen to.